everyone, welcome back to my channel. It is I, Alexis, back again for another episode. For this episode, I'm actually going to talk about something like tiny house related in terms of going tiny. I'm actually going to start this new series. It's going to be called Going Tiny. It's just going to be videos of things that I wish I knew or things I think you should think about. Like while you're going tiny, right? So if this is maybe before you pick your builder or maybe while you're waiting for your tiny house to be built, just, you know, things like that. And yeah, I think that's it. That's all I want to say regarding that. So that's what this episode is going to be about. And I'm probably going to have like a couple, okay, this is really bothering me. Okay. I'm probably going to have a couple of like series running at a time. So this one's probably going to be like, you know, going tiny. I'm probably going to have another one that's about living tiny. And then like just another one on me living tiny. So I really like, why am I so scratchy? I don't know. I really like the whole, like, the series thing. So that's what we're going to do. If you see me looking at my computer, it's notes. That's where I put on my notes. And I'm also texting on my computer because why not? Why not? Okay, so I'm probably going to have to edit that out. So today I want to talk about how I chose my tiny house and then some advice that I want to give you on what you should think about when you are deciding what kind and size tiny house you want to get. And if you're thinking to me, Alexis, what do you mean what kind or size tiny house? I wasn't even thinking that before. It's a great thing you're here because now you know to think about it. And so if you didn't know, Tiny House on Wheels, the acronym for it is THOW, so toes. And then there's Tiny House on Foundations, THOFs. And you could pick one of the two. Obviously, you know that I picked the Tiny House on Wheels, but I kind of want to go into a little bit on why I did that. So I specifically, when I bought my tiny house, I was a first-year grad student. And I didn't have a kid. I didn't have a boyfriend at the time. I was wholeheartedly convinced that I would take maybe another year or two and finish my degree. And then when I'm done with that, I will move my tiny house, somewhere else and work and just move, because I have this fear of staying in the same place for really long periods of time, which is weird because I spent most of my life in Florida, but that was kid Alexis. Adult Alexis has zero desire to spend. I'm just spending everywhere. Has zero desire to spend 15 plus years in the same place. That just freaks me out. And so I knew I wanted it to move, so that's kind of how I got rid of the tiny house on foundation thing. But if you don't have this requirement that you actually want to move your tiny house and you kind of just want a tiny house, I would consider getting a tiny house on foundations. The legalities of it are different than Tiny House on Wheels. Some places you can do them, some places you can't, but I think you have a bit more freedom and leeway with Tiny House on Foundations, which include, you know, building a concrete house. I thought my dog was peeing. He is not. A container home would be considered a tiny house on foundation. Yurts. So there's different options. But I'm not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Tiny House on Wheels now. And for Tiny House on Wheels, you've got the option of the Tiny House on Wheels, which is what I have, RV/fifth wheel, vans, schoolies. I've even seen semi-trucks converted. And so those are your kind of, you know, basic options. I think caravans would count too, but I'm not sure where they would fall on that list if they're on their own. I didn't do research on caravans because it wasn't anything I was interested in. But those are your kind of, what do I say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4/5 if you count RV and fifth wheel differently. Kind of tiny house on wheels that you can get. And so I think that what you have to think about when you're doing this is kind of just how often you want to travel. What are you looking for long term with your tiny house journey, and your budget is going to be a big factor into all of this. So I will just go kind of through why I made the decision to pick the tiny house on wheels first, and then afterwards I'll go into advice on what size I think that you should get if, you know, you want with a tiny house on wheels, because that's really the only size the only size thing that I really know about. So first things first, the reason why I want the tiny house on wheels versus like an RV or a fifth wheel is because RV and fifth wheels are built to be like vacation uses, right? They are not built to be lived in full time. And so essentially everything in it is fucking plastic. Like most of the stuff in an RV is plasticky stuff. It's not meant to be, it's meant for you to use a couple times a year, not every day, 365 for years. And so I've read a lot of blog posts and like a couple of things I could find on people living in RV and how things were breaking, and they had to replace them and things like that. And so then I was like, well, that my goal was to live in my tiny house, like past marriage. So like I had like a 5 to 7 year plan where I wanted to live in this thing, and I was like, well, I didn't want to go the RV route, have things break on me like a year or two in, and then dealing with replacing that kind of stuff, right? So that's something to consider. They are not meant to be lived in full time. And this is not me hating on RVs. This is known in the RV world. Like, everybody knows this. They're not meant to be lived in full time. This shit is plastic. The second point, tiny houses are more customizable. So I am sure if I had like a lot of money, I could I could create a customized RV. I don't even know how to do customized RV. I don't know. I'm not rich. So, but you know, like when you go RV shopping, you go to a lot where they have RVs already, and then you could pick from those. I'm sure maybe you can add options here and there, but for the most part, you don't have the same customizable like design as you would in a tiny house on wheels. And I really, really wanted it to be customized to me and the life I was living and the life I wanted to live, and not really just kind of just something that I bought. So that's another reason why I went with a tiny house on wheels. Give me 1 second. I'll put that down. And then the third point was tiny houses look more like homes. And I'm not saying that an RV can't look like a home, but when you see an RV, it looks like an RV, right? And I wanted this, again, this was a long-term goal for me. I wanted it to look like a home. I wanted, you know, a roof with the door and the panels. And I mean, I don't care if that's shallow because it's all aesthetics. I don't give a fuck. But I wanted it to look like a home and feel like a home, which is why I went with tiny house on wheels. Tiny houses feel sturdier. I really have to spit all over the place. Tiny houses feel sturdier because, again, they are made from heavier, sturdier material. RVs, I don't know what their walls are made out of, but I know it's not wood like mine, or like aluminum, or not the aluminum, the steel. I think some tiny houses nowadays, a bit more expensive, they're more lightweight, are made of like steel bars and things like that, instead of the wooden ones, but mine is wooden. And I wanted that, like, sturdier feeling. So that's why I went with a tiny house on wheels versus like a fifth wheel / RV. And I should have brought this up when I was talking about customization. I know that you can buy an RV, redo the inside, and make it feel like a home inside and replace all the plastic stuff. Yes, you could totally do that, but it's also very, very important to remember that when you are doing those type of renovations, that RV is still on a trailer, and that trailer and the axles and the wheels in that trailer are still only supposed to be able to support a specific percentage, a specific amount of pounds. So when you're doing those renovations, you have to be very, very conscious of the weight of the things you're putting in, and the weight of the, you know, the project and your home, which is why, and that's not something I really wanted to deal with, and I didn't want to trust somebody to do it for me, you know, because then if it's fucked up, then it's me that's, you know, my house on the line, and I didn't want to go through that. So I was like, you know what, I will build from scratch, where the trailer will be made with the idea of how much everything is going to cost based on what I want, and not the other way around. So, you know, plenty of people have done RV renovations. I'm sure there's plenty of YouTube videos or something on it. If that's something that you would like to do, it's probably a cheaper route than what I went, depending on how much you pay for your RV and how much renovations are. But if that's something you want to do, totally go for it. But remember to keep that weight into consideration when you're doing it, and be very, very careful about weight distribution and all that fun stuff. So the reason why I didn't get like a schoolie or a van, so I drive an SUV, and that's big enough for me. Like, I don't like driving, one, and I can't drive, two. And like, I say that, like, I'm a good driver, but I'm a very anxious driver when the vehicle is big, and if I don't know what I'm doing and where I'm going. And then like at night, because even with glasses at night, depth perception is kind of off. So I was like, I'm not driving this shit around nowhere. So the schoolie and the van were automatically out because of that. And furthermore than that, I went tiny in 2018. So schoolies were still really new, I want to say, at the time. And like, I just read so many posts about people having schoolies, not being able to find parking, and having to sleep in Walmart parking lots. And I was like, oh, no, thank you. No, thank you. Because, I mean, some RV parks and places like that will take them, and some will not. I mean, there are some RV parks that won't even take tiny houses. It's the most ridiculous thing, but it's the truth. And I was like, I would rather take my chances with a tiny house than the schoolie. So that's kind of why I didn't pick one of those two things. Now I think that schoolie parking is maybe a more common. I follow a bunch of schoolies on Instagram, and they never seem to have not never. They don't always have, hard time parking. A lot of them, boondocks, though, just basically, like, they have their own water. If they're running on solar, they'll do that, and they're not really hooked up to anything. And that was never going to be my life. Like, I was never going to be that person. And so, like, I wish I could be, but it's not in my personality to do that kind of stuff. And so I was like, well, that's not something I'll ever have to consider, so I'll just go with tiny house on wheels. I'll always have parking with that. But yeah, so that's kind of why I picked the tiny house on wheels, and I didn't pick any of the other tiny house on wheel options. And in terms of size, so my tiny house is 26 feet long, and size will kind of depend on your long-term goals with tiny house living. So what are your long-term goals? The amount of people you have, and your budget, and how often you plan on moving your tiny house. And so I didn't know this when I designed my tiny house, and I didn't know until it was too late. So I have a 26-foot tiny house. I want to say it's probably around like 17,000 pounds. It's very big. I have a lot of stuff in here. And I don't mean like stuff. I just mean like weight in terms of what I have. I have everything that you would have in a normal house. In a traditional home, I have my tiny house. So my house is not meant to be moved often. And I didn't know that. Like I said in the beginning, when I originally went tiny, I was anticipating moving like every 6 months. And then I think I brought this up to my builder at one point on one of our meetings, and he was like, yeah, so when we build houses to last. We don't build them to travel. So your house is very big. Traveling very much will put a lot of wear and tear on it, and it wouldn't be good for the house. And I was like, no. And he's like, because that was fucking me. And I was like, well, god fucking damn it. The house has already started building. So it was too late. And it worked out fine anyways, because my life happened, and I don't move very often anyways. But it can move. I moved it, I moved it twice. It's just, this is not a house that can be moved every couple of months. And I'm going to assume that many 26-foot houses are the same. Really not meant to be moved often, like some of the smaller houses are, but meant to be, but can be moved. And again, these are just opinions. This is just my life. This is just what I was told. It really depends on the weight. If I wanted to move this every 6 months, I could, but then I would have to, deal with the wear and tear on my house. So if your ultimate goal with living tiny is just like, I want to travel and I want to take my house with me because I don't fucking like hotels, they're expensive, and shit like that, then 20 and 24 foot I think would be perfect for that. Now, 20 and 24-foot tiny houses are very, very small. And I didn't realize how small they were until I, like, until I toured the house. So, I'm going to try to put, like, a video up. I have to figure out how to do this. If you probably, like, take off the bathroom. Yeah, maybe the bathroom. That would be, like, a 24-foot tiny house. And my bathroom, and then it would make 24-foot. And so then, like, imagine, like, so where my mirror ends, imagine having to put a toilet, like, a bathroom before that, and then the 24th, and then, like, it was too small. Your girl wasn't doing it. And so I was, like, definitely, because originally when I went tiny, I was going to go with a 24-foot, and then I toured it, and I was like, no fucking way I'm doing this. Ain't no fucking way. My books wouldn't even fit in here. Like, make it make sense. And then the 20-foot tiny houses are even small. Like, those are, like, under 200 square feet if you don't have a loft. So, they look super cute and super adorable online, but it would drive me absolutely batshit crazy to be in such a small space. And it would drive me even crazier to be in a small space with somebody else. Like, I could never. Did I put my water over here? Damn it. Yeah, still texting. So yeah, 20 to 24 foot. Really small, very cute. But if you want to travel, I think they're good. Multiple people though. Whew. That's for somebody else. Could it be me? I know myself enough, and it could not be me. Okay, so then, yeah. And then if you're getting 20, and then if you have, like, I think if you have, like, a partner who you don't want to necessarily be up under all day and night, or if you have a kid or kids, like 1 or 2 kids, I think a 26 to 28-foot tiny house would work fine. Just so long as you know that you will not be traveling often. Or you can just, you'll have to be wary. You have to, realize that, hey, I'm going to be putting more wear and tear on this house by traveling than if I had a smaller house or if my house was standing still. So, I think that they're great. 28-foot tiny houses are actually pretty large, in my opinion. I toured one and I was like, this is gorgeous, this is beautiful, this was too fucking big. It was too big for me. And the price went up at that point. Like, it was way out of my budget, and I was like, no thank you. So I think a 26-foot tiny house was perfect for me. At the time, again, it was just me. Even when it was me and my partner, it was still pretty perfect. We were able to have our own space. We weren't just, like, up under each other at all times, so it didn't feel too bad. And even when it was, like, me, him, and Nalini, it still wasn't even that bad. And it was, like, me, him, Nalini, 2 dogs, 2 cats. So, it was a lot of us in here, and it felt fine. As long as you're not trying to do cartwheels or some shit, but it felt fine. Now it's just me, boss, and the 2 dogs, and 26-foot, we're good. If we had 28-foot, I think it would still be good, now that she's here, and I realize, like, she likes to run and shit. But 26, 28 is good. If you have multiple children, like 2, 3+ kids, and y'all want to be comfortable, I would go with a 32-foot and above. Those are fucking massive. They're like, I think, what do they call them? Like tiny house McMansions. Like, they're fucking huge, y'all. They're so big. I could never have 32-foot. Yeah, never have a 32-foot tiny house. They're too big for me. And it's not even like the square footage that's too big, because I do want to go up in square footage later on. But it's like the fact that it's like very long rectangle, like that's what gets me. The long rectangle part of it is where I draw the line. So, apologies. And so, yeah, but if you're a large family, like, especially if you need, like, I know some people have kids, and they're like, I want each of my kids to have their own room. They have, like, 2, 3 kids. You could do that shit, like, the 32 and above. But those are going to be more expensive. They're going to be hella expensive. And I'm not going to talk about finances in this episode. If you go to my YouTube, if you go to my Instagram page, I did a live on tiny house finances, and I did, like, some Q&A, so that was really fun. So you can look at that there. Or I will be coming out with a tiny house finances video eventually on this page. I did one before. I don't remember what's in it at all, but I'll probably do another one. Yeah, I'll probably do another one with budgets and things like that. So I think that's kind of all that I had on this. Okay, and this part I didn't write down, but it's just good to know because I did give you the link. So tiny houses typically come in 20 foot, 24 foot, 26, 28, 32. Because they're customizable, you can get it in pretty much any length that you want, I think, because they make the trailers custom. So you can do whatever you want, really. It's just, as long as you have the capital to pay for it, pretty much, and I'm a builder that will do it. But the width, so 8.5 is the standard width. You can go to, I apologize, it's either 10 or 10.5. You can go to one of those, and I believe you'll need a permit to move it. Do you need permit for a 10.5 wide tiny house? Yeah, okay, so yeah. So it's 10 foot wide, and you would need a permit. I didn't choose that route because I didn't feel like going through the process of getting a permit and blah, blah, blah. Because again, I was planning on moving it often. But if you're going to get a tiny house and you're like, I don't plan on moving this for another 3 to 5 years, and you know that you probably get like at max 5 or so, and I'm just like throwing numbers out here, like that 5 was just like a number I threw out there, so don't quote me, take me to heart. But if you just know that you're not gonna be moving a lot, 10 foot wide tiny houses look absolutely amazing. Like, just that extra 2 feet, 1.5 feet really makes a difference. And if I could go back and see that I was gonna be in the same spot 2 years later and probably another year or two, I would have paid for the permit and I would have done the 10 feet because it makes a big difference, y'all. That's also something to consider. Something to talk about your builder with. Again, it all really depends on how often you want to move, how much money you got, and how many people is going to be living in your tiny house, and most importantly, what you're going to like or what you're going to be comfortable with. Because there was a part of me that really, really wanted to get that really tiny, cute house that they had online, so I could be living that cute Instagram life, like how other people were doing it. And if they could do it, I could do it too. And I'm very glad that I didn't do that, because then I would be fucking miserable. So this is supposed to be your life, your tiny house journey. The most important part is that you're comfortable in what you have, and it enables you to live the lifestyle of your dream. Regardless of what other people say tiny house should look like, regardless of what you're seeing online tiny house should look like. I feel like that's very, very, very the most important part of this whole journey. Because there was times where I wanted to get things that I thought looked cute because I saw it on Pinterest. And, I wanted to live that life like when I wanted a propane stove and oven. And my builders were like, we are absolutely not building that. So like, no, we're not gonna do that to you. You're getting an electric oven, electric stove. And I'm very glad they did that, because if I had a propane, every time I pulled up this fucking stove, y'all know how much I'd be paying in propane a month. It would stress me out. But yeah. So that's kind of all I had regarding that. I hope that kind of helps. With, your initial choosing of the tiny house. In subsequent episodes, I'll talk more about other things like electricity, what ampage, what toilet you used to get. I'm very excited about toilet conversations with appliances and things like that, but I kind of just want to do a basic for this episode. Always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below. Ask anybody. I answer all my comments, even when they're fucking weird. I answer them all. Or you can DM me on Instagram. I reply to everybody as long as you don't text me something weird. If you just say hi, I'm most likely not going to answer, because I've done that in the past and it's usually like just somebody trying to hit on me. Which, shoot your shot. That's totally fine. Just don't make it uncomfortable, okay? I'm still a person. But DM me on Instagram anytime you ask questions you have. Follow me on Instagram at This Tiny Journey, same handle. I do a bunch of fun stuff over there. I'm going to start doing like days in our lives over there too as well. So I'm very, very excited about all the content I'm putting out. Thank you for being here. I hope it added some sort of value to your tiny house journey. Blessed be. Bye bye.